everybody. This is Micah Lieberman with Scope and with Clinico, once again bringing you somebody interesting from the world of clinical research. It's like a wildlife show, you know. What ecosystem are we visiting today? So today we have Kevin Richards. Kevin and I met last week to have a discussion about something else. And then I said, can I call you next week and we'll do a short video? He said, yes. And really quick, Kevin Richards, his official title is he's the head of quality investigations and analytics. And that's important. He's at AZ. That's a great title. But the reason I said we got to talk more is not only the topic, but about you and your journey, because I don't think you're the typical profile of the pharma dude who's in charge of quality and analytics and all of this. So Kevin, let's talk about you. Introduce yourself and tell us why you're here and how you got here, right?
Yeah, thanks, Micah, for the introduction, and thanks so much for inviting me to do the interview. It was great to catch up with you and talk last week. So, as we discussed with my journey, it's pretty unique. So I started out actually in the construction equipment industry for 10 years, and within that role, I essentially built up like analytics, reporting, data science functionality from the ground up for the enterprise there. From there, I went on to work for a healthcare organization in Ontario. And again, they were looking for someone who could come in and build up analytics, AI, data strategy from the ground up and kind of move throughout the enterprise and overhaul reporting for like the pharmacy area, the finance area, the HR area, and things like that. And then when I saw this role with AstraZeneca, at that point, I was pretty happy with the job I was in, but I was just applying for like dream jobs of mine. And one of the ones that I applied to was AstraZeneca. And they were looking for someone to come in and embed analytics, AI, digital transformation into clinical quality. And I kind of jumped at that opportunity because from my background, you can probably tell that I like a challenge and I like a little bit of adventure in my life. So when I saw the ability to go into a new domain, a new industry, and see how I could apply technology, AI, analytics into clinical quality, it was a new challenge for me and something that I was definitely interested in pursuing. And it's been a great journey ever since over the past 2 years.
Okay, so we talked about this last time. Jumping from construction to pharma, big. Jumping from healthcare to pharma, still big, but not a completely foreign language, right? You have patient data, you have other things. It's still a pretty big jump. It's a new domain. And a lot of people in, speaking especially of clinical research, there's a lot of people that have deep domain expertise. They've been in clinical for a long time. They might jump from one department or function to another within clinical because they're really good. They understand the organization they're in. They understand the whole trial. They understand the different pieces of it. And they sometimes are very good business operations managers, project people, and they get put in to fix a group or build something out. They're not always technical people. So you're coming in from a data science perspective, from a technologist's perspective, understanding infrastructure. So now you're coming into pharma. You've been in big industries at the enterprise level. You've worked on. So when you came into pharma and then you went into clinical quality, how foreign was it? It's a new domain, but data's data, but maybe it's not. So it's a question. I don't know. You tell me because you're behind the curtain.
Yeah, so it's definitely an interesting dynamic and one that I'm get actually asked about quite frequently of what was that journey like. So there were certain concepts which were harder to grasp and took like a little bit of time to actually get, like for example, inspection readiness and what that could look like, and specifically how we could measure that. And it was quite funny because my job during like my first 6 months to year at AstraZeneca was almost going around to all of the different functions within AstraZeneca and just kind of educating them on what inspection readiness could look like. And I had a great mentor at the time, Colleen Maud, who was my boss at the time. And she was trying to carry this mantle of how do we actually measure inspection readiness. And from a technical perspective, it actually was quite simple once you break it down and you try and like not think about it as this holistic issue, but how do you break it down into the individual SOPs you want to measure? How do you actually build out these metrics so that you can actually measure inspection readiness? But it was something that took a long time to actually get. But on the flip side, I think the nature of someone like myself with my background, specifically with analytics, AI, and data, is the nature of every one of my roles has been that in any given week, I could be going into a different domain in an enterprise or a different domain in a business, and having to understand it and then build out solutions for that domain. So to give you an idea, whether I was in the construction equipment industry or healthcare, like I could be working on HR reporting one week, and then part of my team could be working on overhauling like financial reporting the next week. So I think it's kind of part of the nature of an analytics leader that you're used to going into new areas, having to become an expert pretty quickly, and then
I agree.
do like impactful solutions. So
I see that. And there's a lot of people like at Scope. We have these entire sessions, 4 days talking about this. And there's always an evolution, there's always a revolution. We're in both right now. AI is a real thing and it's changing fast. The discussions we're having, there's different levels of understanding within each function of what capabilities are possible and how to use AI. But everybody, no matter if they're coming from the recruitment group, they're coming from the quality group, it doesn't matter. They want you to help them solve their problem or figure out what tools can I use? How can we do this? And and there's only so many of you, because everybody wants you to swoop in like paratroopers, kind of jump in, figure out the lay of the land. But sometimes it's not possible because they don't even know the question to ask, or they may not have the data to query properly. So how are you doing it? How are you guys prioritizing you as a resource? Do you know what I'm saying? Because you can only parachute into so many places.
yeah, and that's actually quite frequently the conversation that I have with my boss is, how do we make sure that you're not stretched too thin, and how do we ensure that we're prioritizing work for the organization? Because that's the truth of the matter. It's like what I've found is every time we put out an impactful solution that hits like almost all of our studies, I then get various functions asking me for advice on how we could automate some of the stuff they're doing, even if it's not in the quality domain. And I've become quite prominent speaking at like internal organizational meetings and stuff on innovation and stuff like that. So I'm always happy to like guide people, but it is an interesting dynamic. And just to give you an idea of like inspection readiness, and like one of the things that we like, part of the journey is what can you prove to yourself and the organization. So one of the big things we wanted to prove is, can we actually measure inspection readiness and what it looks like? And like one of the aha moments for me, it's like, it was actually really simple from a technology perspective, but we had to cross domains to do it. So what we're doing is we're just measuring like mandatory study plans within a clinical trial. And essentially what we're doing is we're just measuring the date that a document's uploaded into the TMF to the specific milestone that's highlighted in the SOP that document's due for.
Clear actions, something that's measurable.
And it's quite simple from like a technology perspective, but it was just such an aha moment of, holy, we could actually measure some of this stuff. And it's like, when you start to think about inspection readiness as like a bundle of all these really actual simple technical things to do, but it's so impactful when you do it across hundreds of studies and things like that.
And that's what, and I know we got to wrap it up, and we could go on forever, but also thank you for speaking at Scope. You speak internally, but also thank you for being a person who's willing to share their journey. Because I think Scope, the power of Scope is we bring all these people together and everybody's collegial. They're all trying to help each other because everybody's doing well and we do better together. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing this today. And also I should mention, you are also a luminary for Scope and for Clinico. And we just have this group of people like you, experts, kind faces who are willing to answer questions. So this is for everybody out there. And I say this on the keynote stage at Scope. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Everybody has different levels of expertise. So I'm sure you have very smart people in their domains asking you questions saying, hey, is this a dumb question? But I got a question for you. That's fantastic. So Kevin.
Yeah, and just back to my
man.
example about aha moments. It's like
Aha.
if I can give anybody an aha moment, whether I'm speaking externally at Scope or internally, it's like you'd be shocked at how far that can go, right? If you just show somebody the art of the possible, then they start thinking about what's possible, right?
Cool.
So yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to do the interview, and thanks for accepting me as a luminary into Clinico.
Yeah. All right, Kevin, we'll see you at Scope again, and thanks for hanging out, man. Good to see
you.
you.
All right, thanks. It's a pleasure.
Okay. Bye, Kevin.